Can you look to the left? Please. John, here, please. To the left. To the left. Here. To the blue shirt.
To the right, please.
To the left, please. And to the middle. To the left, please. Here.
To the right.
To the left, please. Left.
Thank you. And again in the middle.
To the left, please. To the left.
In the middle, in the second line here.
Over here. And here in the middle.
Up in the middle.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're Patrick McCabe, yeah? Okay. Because of the E. Yes.
You need this on?
Ja, not now. Guten Tag. Darf ich jetzt bitte um Ruhe bitten? Dankeschön. Und die Fotografen sich bitten hinzusetzen. Können sich die Fotografen denn langsam hinsetzen? Dankeschön. I would like now to open the press conference on the film The Butcher Boy. And I would like to introduce our guests here. And I start from this side of the table. So I'd now like to welcome Patrick McCabe, who is the author of the book and co-scriptwriter of the film. And now I'd like to welcome Eamonn Owens, who played Francie Brady. Now I would like to welcome Neil Jordan, who is the director of the film and co-scriptwriter. And now I'd like to welcome Redmon Morris, who is co-producer, and Stephen Woolley, who's also the co-producer. So we have two producers. Okay. Your questions, please. There's a question here on the right-hand side.
Petra Hart and Kiss FM. Mr. Jordan, first I must tell you, if I would give the Golden Bear, it would be yours.
Thank you. Thank you.
Secondary, I must tell you, you haunted my dreams last night because I was asking you following question, why the hell did you make the film? Whom for? Now, after seeing the film, I know why I asked, because for me it was so hard to understand the film. No, not to understand the film, but to explain why I understand it. I would like to ask you, now the message I got out of it was, not that the little boy is insane. For me, that's not insanity, what he's having in his feelings. For me, that's anger, which is not being caught up by his surrounding. He's driven insane. He's not insane from the start. Now, is that adaptable to now a society, young people? Because I can see this around my area here, that that kind of anger he has at this very moment is taking place in Germany between East and West. What do you think about the rest of the world and your environment? Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you said. Okay. I think it's I mean, I made the movie because of the book, okay? And the book had a specific. It's one of those extraordinary books that is so local, you know. It's so local. It's not even Irish, you know. It's a Monaghan book, really, which is on the border between the North and South in Ireland. And I mean, I think my job as a director, I just wanted to show this beautiful soul of this boy as a series of disasters that happened to him, you know, gradually make all of his mental world, turns all of his mental world upside down in a way, you know, and the fantasy elements in the way he looks at things begin to take preponderance over the reality. So, I mean, I just wanted to bring an audience on a journey that showed how this boy's mind became unhinged, you know, and what a wonderful mind it was in a way, you know. I don't know how it relates to what is happening between East and West, you know, so you'd have to forgive me on that, you know. But
can we have the microphone?
Certainly so, I'll come. What I meant was that this feeling of the anger that the boy has, which is a natural feeling under that circumstance, takes place this very moment all over the world within children of that age.
Yeah, no, I mean, hopefully there is a universal arc to the story, you know? I mean, the journey that Francie takes, I think, can be understood anywhere, you know, if you're from Australia or Kansas or Germany or Poland or anywhere, I hope, you know. And I hope it does relate in that way.
There's another question there on the right-hand side.
Mr. Jordan, can you tell us how you came to cast Eamonn in this role? And tell us, and Eamonn yourself, tell us your own background as an actor.
Do you want me to go first? Okay. I'd finished the screenplay. Patrick McCabe and myself kind of co-authored it. And it was obvious that you could not make the movie if we had not found the child to play the role. So with Stephen Woolley and Redmon Morris, we had two casting directors just scour the entire country when we were making a film called Michael Collins, the last movie I made, you know. And we had these casting directors just go to every possible, I think they must have seen every kid in Ireland, really. And literally we could find nobody who could even remotely approach the role until they went to this school in Killishandra and they found Eamonn, you know. And no, he'd never acted before. Never acted before, as far as I know. So I put you over to Eamonn, you know. I mean, when I found him, I thought, finally, he can make this movie, you know. That's basically it. And he gave this extraordinary performance. He wants to know how I don't know, what did you want to know from Eamonn? Ask him the question again.
Well, Eamonn, can you tell us from your own personal experience growing up where you did in Ireland, did you apply any of your own personal experiences to your role in this film? First question, and well, I have a second question coming up.
Yes, I did apply some of my experience to the role as my expressions. I applied them to some of the scenes which I had to be sad. I sometimes get emotional just thinking to myself. I can do that to myself, but on others, well, I have a bit of a bad temper, as you can see in the film. I have it hidden away now, but it comes out sometimes. I got a good chance then to express it when I was doing the film.
Okay. We have a question here, probably in French.
Well, not in French.
Okay, in English, wonderful.
Yes, of course. Well, a question, as always, to Mr. Jordan. You just told us that the book decided you to make the movies because you are fascinated with the book. My question is, how much of your own childhood experience you relate to the book and to your movie? Thank you.
I grew up in Ireland in the 50s. I was born in 1950, you know, so I was 12 years old in 1962 when Francie, which is the period where we show this in the movie. I didn't grow up in a small town. I was born in a small town, but I actually grew up in Dublin. But I really wanted to recreate the thing I felt I could bring to the film, as well as my memories of the cruelty of childhood, is because childhood I think is very cruel, was a portrait of the Ireland that I remember from those days, you know. And it was, I mean, to me, it was looking back, it's an extraordinary world, you know, where it must be like growing up in Ceausescu's Romania or something like that, you know, where the place was actually sealed from the outside world in a way, and the only messages you got came like messages in a bottle, you know, from television and movies and comic strip books and stuff like that. And you realized there was a wider world out there, a much more exciting world out there through these things you were receiving off the radio and the television, really. And where the kind of Catholic Church made it kind of it was their own. The church dominated everything, you know, in a strange and extraordinary way, you know.
Public, it's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question here again on the right-hand side.
Mr. Jordan, I was quite intrigued by what you just said, that this young man hasn't acted before. Since the weight of the film is on his acting and his role in the film, and he's almost in every scene, did you have any reservations on a newcomer, someone who's never acted before? Because it puts a tremendous amount of pressure on a young actor, whether he's a professional or an amateur, to carry a movie like this.
No, I mean, if you cast a child, generally you're far better off casting somebody who's no acting experience whatsoever. I mean, kids are natural actors, you know. Some of them internalize it, some of them externalize it. But what I find is if a kid has gone to acting school, generally all the magic has vanished, you know. So I was definitely looking for somebody who had never acted before, you know.
There's a question on the right-hand side, sort of front. If you could get up so we see you nicely, thank you.
To Mr. Jordan, what do you think is the most important theme in your whole work? The whole upgrounding, the politics, or the religion?
In my work, all the movies I've made, I don't think the politics matter that much, you know. I mean, I've made movies that impinge on politics, but I don't think I've made political films. I think really the kind of the inner state. It's a hard question to answer, really. It's very hard. I mean, I just try, every time I make a movie, I try to put something on screen that I haven't seen before, really. Sometimes I succeed better than others, sometimes I don't succeed, you know. It's, the themes are often about loss and about obsession, you know, and romantic obsession sometimes.
There was a question right-hand side, sort of somewhere there.
When the book came out, and there was talk of the film being made, a lot of people thought, I thought, this is a book that is going to be very, very difficult to make into a film. You've demonstrated that it's not difficult, or maybe it was difficult and we don't see it. Can you tell us a bit about, perhaps Mr. McCabe, a bit about the process of adapting this very complicated and unusual book?
Well, I was asked by Neil to do a draft of the screenplay, and at that time, in 1992, I didn't have any screenwriting experience. And I think at that time I'd delved into various screenwriting manuals, and a constant that I kept coming across was that you should never use voiceover because it's a cinematic cliche. So with all the enthusiasm of Haruki, I proceeded to ditch the voiceover and arrived to meet Neil for a drink with a couple of crumpled up pages in my inside pocket that were like some kind of crazy sub-David Lynch surrealist take on something that vaguely resembled the book. So I passed them across to Neil and watched his eyeballs flip all over the room when he looked at this extraordinary piece of non-narrative, and as in his gentlemanly fashion said, I think, Pat, what you'll have to do is go back to the book. So I then went back to the computer and the book and proceeded to replace the voiceover where it should rightly have been at the top of the page. And then wrote, I suppose, what was a very loose, baggy kind of script, which I brought to Neil, and he edited it and we discussed it, and then I wrote a shorter version, which was a little bit tighter, but was a little bit kind of lacking in perhaps dramatic movement. At which point Neil took both drafts, a copy of the book, and sat in an editing suite somewhere while he was cutting an interview with a vampire. And about 3 days later we met again in Soho, and he handed me something and I said, "What's this?" He says, "Read it." So it was effectively the shooting script of The Butcher Boy. So that's how that came about.
There was a question here in the middle section.
My name is Eckhard Müller from Bremen. I would like to know how the Catholic Church reacted first on the book and then how the Catholic Church in Ireland reacted on the plans making a film from it. And then third, I would like to know from Eamonn how it was for him. I mean, still a young person and maybe strongly related to the Catholic Church. I don't know, but I would like to know something about that.
Well, the only reaction I had from the Catholic Church was a letter from a 78-year-old nun in Carrickmacross, County Monaghan, who said it was the funniest book she ever read in her life. So I'd like to pass that one on to Eamonn and Neil.
Okay, Eamonn doesn't want to speak, so I'll speak. No, it's not an irreverent movie. You know, I mean, the country was like that. You know, for whatever reason, Eamonn de Valera gave over the entire educational system to a bunch of guys in black skirts. You know, I don't know why he did that, but he did it. So you had these celibate men raising, you know, educating entire generations of Irish people, and there was a tremendous amount of abuse and stuff. You know, and we're not trying to make an anti-Catholic movie with this thing. We're just trying to relate it to the Ireland that, or the country, or the specific town, you know, in which young Francie grew up, you know. And I don't think those priests are presented in an unkind way. They're just presented in actually kind of a realistic way, in a way, you know. I think. So, Eamonn, you better talk about your Catholicism, or whatever.
The Catholic Church. I didn't see really anything wrong with the film, because it didn't really relate to it. It was a young boy in his imagination. So oh yeah, that that was a bit bad. Yeah, I went a bit overboard on that. I'd say that was just my way of doing it. It felt right at the time when I was doing it. That the kid, if his father and mother was dead, he would run about and say them kind of words and be that kind of person if he had nobody to direct him in the right way. So
when I was growing up in Ireland, there was an icon we had in our house, which was very common in Irish households at that time, which was a figure of the Virgin who is described as Mother of Perpetual Succour, who was the figure who comforted you in times of trouble. And that's what the Virgin Mary represents to me in the movie. And why she speaks like that, I felt, was that priests used to say, you would ask, how would you pray? And you would say, speak to the Blessed Virgin Mary and she will intercede for you, but speak to her in your own language. So it would seem to me that when the Blessed Virgin says, for fuck's sake, Francie, she's simply speaking to him in his own language, and it's meant to be a warm and tender kind of exchange, far from being scatological or blasphemous in any way. I mean, maybe it is, but that's certainly not the way I read it.
I don't think the Catholic Church took any... oh, can you hear me? It's not, I mean, you know, it's not... The Church doesn't run Ireland, you know, and it's actually... When we had to go to some institutions, you know, where there were reform schools which used to be run by Christian brothers, and I went to the biggest one, Artane, because I was looking for research, and I spoke to a very old brother there, and I said to him, well, do you remember what it was like in the 50s and 60s? And he said, I really do, I remember, but I really don't like to remember what it was like, you know, because I mean, even he was embarrassed at what was, you know, at the kind of power they had. You know, if you give anybody power, there will be abuse of power. You know, that's what happens.
Question sort of far end in the middle.
Mr. Jordan, was it your idea to cast Sinead O'Connor as Virgin Mary?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Can you tell us something? Why did you bring her in to this film?
I was going to cast Marilyn Monroe, but she was not alive any longer, and then I was going to digitally try and bring her to life, and the legal problems were insurmountable. So I thought Sinead would be the next best bet, you know. No, actually, seriously, she's a really good actress, Sinead. I've seen her in a movie called, she did one film called Hush-A-Bye Baby. She actually did another movie called Wuthering Heights, which I didn't see. But I thought she was great in this movie, this Little Derry movie that she made. And, you know, she looks like those austere statues and pictures of the Virgin Mary that used to be in everyone's house at the time, you know. She got that beautiful bone structure and lovely profile, you know, so I thought she would be a good casting.
The question on the right-hand side corner.
Question to Eamonn. In the movie there is one of the key roles has TV. So what's your favorite TV show, and how important is TV for you?
Well, favorite TV show would be Friends, I'd say. I'd say that would probably be my most favourite. And I don't watch TV that much, as I'm at school most of the day, and we don't watch TV at school. And by the time I come home and I've eaten my dinner, I have to do my homework. So which then by the time I finish that, I have to go to bed. So I don't watch much TV.
We have a question here on the bare left here. Yes.
I'd like to ask Eamonn a little bit more about acting. Suddenly, this role being thrust on him, what does he feel about it? What did he feel about being asked to take on the role? And did he get scared at some point that he could do it?
Yes, I got scared at the start before we even started the film. I was a bit scared that I might be wasting everybody's time, that I probably wouldn't be able to do it, and I just happened to do a few fluky scenes, scenes that I could actually do at the auditions. But it turned out for the best. Like, me and Neil, we got on grand, and we compromised a lot on how the scenes should be done, and it worked out for the best.
We have a question here on the left-hand side. If you could stand up so we see you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please, I'd like to ask Eamonn about two things. About how was the process of auditions? How many times you did it? And to Mr. Neil Jordan, if he was very disappointed about Michael Collins, and what do you think? Because the film didn't happen, it won the prize in Venice, and after that, I think it didn't happen really. And just two questions.
I went for about 5 auditions, and on the last audition, there was only 4 of us left for the part of Francie, and we were all doing each part. We did it together, like all 4 boys. We did it together, like one of us played Joe and the other played Francie. And then in the end, Neil told me that me and Alan Boyle, who's my neighbour, had either Francie and Joe. And the next audition after that, we went up for an audition with Stephen Ray and Ashton O'Sullivan. And Neil told me that I had got the part of Francie Brady.
And you want me to talk about Michael Collins, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, the film, you know, it did very well in Ireland and England. It wasn't helped by the fact that there was the IRA started bombing things again. That didn't help, you know. And it was released in America. It did very well, but I think initially it seemed like it was going to do very well. But you know, I think the subject matter and all of the accusations that were being made about the movie, and I suppose the whole idea of making a film about terrorism, got everybody a bit nervous, you know. So the film kind of was lost, you know, in the United States. But it's been the most successful film ever released in Ireland, you know, if that's any good. But I liked it anyway.
There was a question here on the right-hand side, close to the wall.
So, question to Patrick McCabe. Was it your first screenplay, and was it difficult to write it? And second question, you play a little role in the film as far as I remember. Was it difficult too, or did you enjoy it?
Well, the first question about writing the screenplay, I think that there are certain skills and disciplines involved in writing for the screen that I hadn't mastered then and probably still haven't. I think that the internal structure of a screenplay, where you have plants and payoffs and rotating wheels that must be invisible so that you keep the audience interested in basically, as Neil has described on another occasion, what happens next. You know, it's like bouncing a ball maybe. And I think perhaps writing a novel is in ways closer to doing a poem maybe, or a sonata or something, that it doesn't necessarily depend on manipulation and second guessing, that kind of thing. And maybe I'm overstating the case about cinema, but any road up, I didn't have the skills, and I think the drafts that I produced certainly couldn't have been filmed, but perhaps there were some use to Neil in eventually putting together a watertight kind of script, you know, but that was pretty much Neil Jordan's work, not mine. As far as acting goes, I reckoned I was Al Pacino before I actually was asked to act, you know, and I had myself psyched up to carry, I think it was to wheel a barrow with 2 saints in it initially, and I arrived on set and pretty much ready to go, and Neil said, "Oh, we're not using the barrow now, you've got to carry them." So I completely kind of fell apart, and had to carry these 2 statues, and I pretty much know everybody in the town, so I was coming up the street after about the 25th take. People were saying, will you hurry up, we want to go home for our dinner, for Christ's sake, he's got it wrong again. So, and the producer Redmon said to me, when it was finished, said, I have to say that you turned in a pretty good performance. I didn't think you were going to be able to walk and talk at the same time, because I had done a bit of an audition for the part before, and I really did think I was Al Pacino, because I swaggered in and thought, well, I don't have to learn these lines because I wrote them. And all I can remember to this day is Neil and Redmond looking at me aghast as I just turned the script upside down, and I was into a sort of a rictus, because I do a lot of readings, you see, but what I'd forgotten is that the lectern stops there, and I discovered that there was a whole lot of other stuff down here that you're supposed to use as well. So I just simply became totally uncoordinated, and it was that horrible moment. Now I know what actors feel like when they just fail the audition miserably, and I looked at Redmond and he looked at Neil. I sort of sidled out the side door and went into the pub next door, sat there sort of like I was injected with cement for about half an hour, until eventually the auditioning party arrived in more like a funeral party. Sat down beside me, had a drink, and we all sat there staring at the wall, just astonished at how bad acting can be. So and then eventually I somehow got it together to be a drunk, and I had to do a lot of research actually. So I did some method acting. Yeah, it's some method acting in my hometown, and found myself a brown suit. So you know, if any agents out there, cowboys or detectives, I'm your man.
We have a question on the right-hand side, middle section.
Young Eamonn, speaking about method acting, how did you get yourself rageous for the scenes, and what do you rage for? Because you were saying you do lose your temper now and then.
How do I get myself like worked up for the scenes? Yeah, I'd say I think of something like really bad, like that I don't really like at all, and then I add something really good in, then I add another little bad thing in, and it just works me up for some odd reason.
What would that be, the bad thing you don't like?
Well,
beating up your cat or something?
I actually don't like wolves. I put wolf in there because I don't like the wolf on TV or that. I don't like seeing it on TV. I think it's a clatty looking animal. So I put it in there along with our dog. I put it in there, and then another wolf, and it just works me up for the scene. I get no longer.
You never told me that.
I know.
Okay, we have a question here on the left-hand side. I think this is French's time.
Yeah. Monsieur Collins, Monsieur Jordan, ne croyez-vous que
don't you think that, Mr. Jordan, that Butcher Boy
prologue
could almost be a prologue for Michael Collins, because it represents the genesis of a rebel?
Sorry.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Perhaps we can get it repeated. Can you ask him to repeat it for us, please?
Sorry.
Don't you think
Butcher Boy
that Butcher Boy could play, well, also serve as a prologue for Michael Collins, because after all, it really represents the genesis of how a rebel develops. The question was to Neil Jordan.
Ah, okay. Yes. No, I don't. No. Because, I mean, no. I mean, Michael Collins was a historical character, you know? And he was a rebel for a reason. He saw a political situation that he wanted to change, you know? And his life was tragic in the end because of his involvement with violence, I suppose. I mean, the Butcher Boy is a totally different story, you know? It's about how a society and a culture and a time and a place drive one mind, a very specific boy's mind, into a state of unhingement, a state of dismemberment in a way, you know, and I think they're quite different.
There's a question here in front.
Yeah, from Stephen Ashton from California. Nice film, very moving. And I love the music. Can you tell us a bit about the irony with regard to the music? And also, where did you find the tie with pigs?
Pat McCabe found the tie, did you? Did he? Yeah. His wife did. Okay. The music. Elliot Goldenthal has done the last 3 films that myself and Stephen and Redmon have done together. Because I don't make these films on my own. You know, these 2 gentlemen are here. But he's a remarkable composer, and I think he's one of the best composers there are around. I mean, the great thing about Elliot is he's got a life outside of movie music. In other words, he composes oratorios and he composes ballets and, for symphonic material as well. And he found it tremendously difficult to find a way into this movie, because the atmosphere of it was so specific. And in the end, what he said to me was his only solution was that he had to write it as if he was Francie Brady. In other words, he had to become Francie Brady to write the music, and to give that kind of screaming optimism, that kind of insane optimism that drives him forward all the time. So I'm quoting Elliot there, okay?
What about the songs?
Oh, the songs. We had chosen those songs. But again, it was very difficult to find a specific songs. I mean, for some reason, that Santo and Johnny version of Mac the Knife just seemed to fit the atmosphere of the town, and that tinny little guitar, it seemed to be coming out of the town hall or something. And that Sinead O'Connor sang The Butcher Boy. I mean, The Butcher Boy is a very well-known Irish ballad. So she sang that, and we did that at a little session in Dublin. And then the other songs, I mean, Where Are You, that Frank Sinatra song, it seemed to me to express all of his yearning for Joe, and it's a ballad of loss, really, isn't it? And then Dion and the Belmonts, I thought that was just a beautiful song, but we just found them really, but with a lot of, kept trying different songs, and some would fit, some wouldn't fit, and we actually wanted to use a version of Santo and Johnny playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, but MGM wouldn't let Redmond have it, let us have it for some reason. They think it's a glorious piece of history that won't be sullied by the likes of me.
There's another question on the right-hand side.
I think it's not only a film about a boy's life and his fantasies, but also about Ireland. There is an enormous sense of place in that film. When I remember this small town and the ordinary people, and so were you very conscious of that? And did you find that in the book, or is it mostly your idea and your inspiration?
No. I mean, Pat is doing himself a great disservice when he says the first 2 drafts he wrote were incoherent. They weren't, They were a collection of actually magnificent scenes. It was just the connecting tissue that was needed to put it together. But I mean, the book is a startlingly accurate portrait of a small town, and it's an outlandish portrait, but it's never a caricature, And I was just very concerned in making the film that I also did justice to the kind of place that those towns used to be, that I remember from growing up. I didn't grow up in a small town like Pat did, but I remember that world very well. And one wants to make it larger than life, the way it would be in a child's mind. Where all the characters seem just slightly exaggerated, but never to the point of caricature. Because we didn't want to do any of the elements in the film or any of the characters a disservice, really. But it's less about Ireland than it is about Clonus, than that specific Monaghan Cavan area. If it's a very specific part of Ireland, Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you would. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, very.
I have a question here, gentleman on the right.
Just wanted, Eric Hansen, Hollywood Reporter. I just wanted to interject shortly a brief thing. On your new movie, which I believe is Vision for DreamWorks and Columbia TriStar, do you have casting done on that?
I finished shooting the movie.
There's another one that you're working on, I believe.
Oh, another one?
Yes, the new one.
Oh, the new one. Yeah. Well, I don't want to talk about that yet. Haven't even.
Could you give us is there a name on casting?
No, there isn't. No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question here on the left-hand side.
Question for Eamonn. Now that you've had a taste of acting, is that a career that you would like to pursue? And if not, what are some of your other options that you're thinking about at the moment?
Yes, I do think it is a career I'd like to pursue, but I think I'm going to wait till I finish school first. After I finish my exams and I'll see where I go on to be then. I probably will end up doing acting, but I'm not sure yet.
Okay. Are there any more questions? No more? Well, then thank you very... Oh, there's one.
Just one last question to Eamonn. Is there a Mrs. Nugent in your surrounding?
No, there's not.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for having spent... Do you want to say something?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. All the best for your film. Huh?